broke entrepreneur asked me the other day, what's one piece of unfiltered advice that I could give them to go from $0 to $1 million in 12 months? And I thought about it for a very long time. And I realized that 99% of entrepreneurs will never make $1 million. I came up with these 7 core myths that people believe that stop them from doing so. These are the myths that I have overcome to become a cash millionaire at 26, doing over $800 million in my own e-commerce sales and coaching hundreds of e-commerce entrepreneurs. One of the biggest lies in business is that you need to be smart to make millions of dollars. The other day, I was having lunch with someone that was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, I thought they were just worlds above me in intelligence. And I was asking them basic tax questions about something that I was struggling with. I was a little bit embarrassed to even ask it because I thought that the answer was very obvious. And he looked at me and he said, I have no idea. And it's just a reminder that we put people in our brain as just being better than us and smarter than us. And it gives us this excuse that we are not smart enough to do it. When realistically, dumb people make more money. When we look at all of the people that we went to school with that were most intelligent, I'm talking about raw IQ, where they would ace any test. Where are they now? Chances are they're probably not richer. They might have a very fulfilling job, like being a doctor or something, and that might be the path that they want, but chances are they're not millionaires. And when you really drill down on this, it's because of a concept called skill stacking. So how does this happen? How do dumb people become richer than smart people? We need to consider it similar to a video game of levels and skills. There are certain things that we need to level up in to become very, very rich. And this doesn't necessarily mean IQ. There's actually one characteristic that is most correlated with success. There's a famous study done by Angela Duckworth where they got 190 spelling bee participants and they characterized certain things such as self-confidence, IQ, and this one last concept as well. And they found that this last concept was the most important and correlated with success. And it's the same in business. It's called grit. Grit is the overlap of perseverance and passion. It basically states that someone's willing to do a lot of one thing to constantly break down barriers and improve in that thing because they are passionate about it. So they persevere and therefore become successful. Now, I'd like to point out that something like grit is often what's referred to as a soft skill, such as like communication. We need to also overlap this with skill stacking in hard skills. Hard skills are the things that you can technically do to provide value for either your business or for an employer, such as Facebook advertising, content creation. There's no point us learning a very, very basic skill that is kind of on its way out. It's not trending. It's not going to be important for the future. And more importantly, it doesn't tie closely to the value creation for that business. Let's take copywriting, for example. If I am learning copywriting skills for brand or social media copywriting, that's very creative. It's very hard to align how much money that is creating, say, compared to someone writing a very long sales piece of content that people are directly running Facebook advertising to, that they can say, hey, this is producing me a 5 times return on investment. Therefore, I can pay you $10,000 for this article. Compare that to just a social media post where they're just writing a couple of words. We want to overlap our soft skills and hard skills, and we want to just focus on that. And that will always outweigh just someone that has raw intelligence. One thing they also found about smart people is when they have a certain hypothesis, because they're intelligent and they know it, when they come up against resistance to that initial hypothesis and they can't actually break through and they fail, they're far more likely to give up. Whereas dumb people, we just don't know any better. We just keep pushing forward. And that brings me to my second myth, which is you should listen to your friends and family about making money. If you want to stay broke, you should listen to broke people. This is why we shouldn't listen to our friends and family that have picked a path of not creating wealth. And that's completely acceptable for them. We just don't want their advice. One of my first ever successful businesses after a ring of failures was launching Instagrams, and I was selling advertising on the Instagrams. I remember it was a very new field and I got offered $30,000 to sell the Instagram. When I went to my traditional mentors, people that have been in business for 20 years, they instantly told me, you should sell it. Not knowing how it was going to be taxed, if it was legal, if the Instagram was just going to ban me. They had no realm of consciousness around what the field actually was and what was the potential. So I ended up selling it. Shortly after, my peers in the space were building 50, $100 million brands through that Instagram, which was true generational wealth, which was my goal at that point. Instead of asking my friends and family and basic mentors for advice, I should have been relying on something that's called positive mimesis, which basically states copying what people are doing in a positive way. If I'm copying people that have no experience, it's not going to work out. So how do we do that? First of all, we need to get in the right circles. We need to go to events. We need to go onto Discord communities. We need to find people that are not doing hundreds of millions of dollars, but someone that is just slightly ahead of us, because chances are the person that's doing $100 million doesn't have time to support you, doesn't have time or the interest to help you. But the person that's slightly above you will definitely be able to empathize where you're at and will also have the time to do so. Then we need to understand how to ask the right questions. First, frame your existing situation in an unbiased way. You could convince even some of the smartest mentors about your plan of action if that's what you want to do and you frame the scenario in that way. So give them the full facts with no other agenda. The third question is, do you have a first-hand situation that you had to experience something like this? How did it go and did you wish that you did better? By framing the questions like this and also asking the right audience, suddenly you'll get much better advice than your parents or your friends can give you. Number 3 is that you can't design luck. You can 100% design luck for your life. You can absolutely design luck in business. The way I see it, there's 3 core pillars of luck. The first is people. People could open the doors to opportunities that you just wouldn't have had options to do otherwise. The second is just general consumption of information. Think about books and YouTube videos that you watch that suddenly open up a world of opportunity. And then the final is awareness. Now, awareness, what I mean by this is having enough general knowledge and skill set so that you can identify a certain trend or identify information as the lucky opportunity kind of crosses you. Think about the first time you heard about Bitcoin. Did you have enough knowledge about the financial system or even about how technology could kind of work to identify that as a trend? So when we've got these 3 core pillars of luck, then the final thing that we've got to do is also consider time on field. We can grossly change the likelihood of us being lucky if we increase the frequency of all 3 of those pillars. Think of it similar to if you're subbed off in a game and you come on for 10 minutes, how likely is it you're going to score a goal compared to being on there for the whole game? Far more likely if you're actually playing the game with a high amount of frequency. People often say luck equals preparation plus opportunity. I would go further and say that luck equals preparation plus opportunity times by frequency. And we can keep doing this until we are guaranteed to become lucky. The best example of this is my videographer. I was thinking about getting started on YouTube and I had an Oodie job posting for creating Facebook ads for Oodie. And he said he had a popular YouTube and I was like, maybe we should get started. Without hesitation, after offering him the job, he packed up his things, drove 8 hours across the state lines and basically moved around the corner from me to get started. I didn't have any plan. And suddenly we just constantly kept plugging away at it, doing videos. And eventually became so exposed to the entrepreneurial network that I have. Now he is consulting for some of the biggest entrepreneurs in Australia. He's running all of their social media accounts. Some will say he got lucky, but I just think he focused on the 3 core pillars of luck and just focused on frequency as well. The next one is probably one of the most important, and I've learned the lesson the hard way. It's that if you just focus on solving a problem within business, you'll be successful. That's not true. After failing so many businesses, I learned that just solving a big problem in the world, like everyone says, isn't enough to create a successful business. The first thing you need to consider is how many people actually have the problem that you're trying to solve. One of my first failed businesses was launching seasonings. I looked at all of the competitors in the market and they looked the exact same. They were in small little plastic bottles like this. They had the same ingredients. And I was like, there's definitely an opportunity to create a exotic seasoning business with really unique ingredients that's in a beautiful glass vial that will sit on the counter so people are proud to show it. The visibility will increase sales because it'll become a conversational piece. On paper, that's an amazing business. But one thing I didn't consider is how much does it cost to actually solve that problem on a unit economic basis, meaning every single sale that we do, how much do we make from it? And what I found out was by using really expensive glass vials that are quite large, and expensive ingredients. All my products were 5 times more expensive than everyone else's. You need to ask yourself, can I solve this problem at a price that the customers are willing to pay for? The second thing that we need to consider is market size. Now, a lot of people will say that this doesn't matter and you need to niche down, and sometimes that is true. But we need to dive deeper into that concept, because if it's too niche and people aren't in a certain stage of awareness to the product, they're not going to purchase. The stages of awareness are not aware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware, brand aware. We are trying to make sure when we're quantifying how many people actually have this problem and how feasible the business is, we need to make sure that there's a large customer audience, either in the product aware or at least solution aware kind of situation. The second part of that is we need to challenge the concept of, should we niche down? If we niche down too far, the market is not going to be big enough. We're not going to have enough customers to sell. Let's say, for example, we've done our research and we know that we can solve the problem in an economic way. The next thing we need to consider is how many financially viable customers are in the right stage of awareness to purchase our product. The stages of awareness is not aware, which is obvious. They just have no awareness of any problem or product or anything. It's probably where the seasonings were, to be honest, because people didn't really know that they needed a beautiful seasoning vial. Then we've got problem aware, which means that they're aware that there's a problem, but not aware that there's any product to solve it. Then we've got product aware, which means that they might be aware of something like there's a seasoning out there that actually does this, but we're not really sure about what it's called. And then we've got brand aware, which is like, hey, this is Davie's seasoning business. When we're researching the total addressable market, we really want to consider where there's a large enough audience. We don't want people not being aware, and we don't want people being brand aware. We want somewhere in the middle. And then we want to quantify, as to our best of our ability, how easy it's going to be to sell to them. Suddenly, we've got a business plan. But it can't just be, hey, there's a problem in the world, I'm going to start a business and solve it. That's what everyone told me to do. Number 5 is the myth that you can get rich quickly. This is probably the main myth that cause people to quit. People think that you can get rich quickly because of stories like mine, where I talk about going from $0 to $10 million in just 12 months. But the truth is, it took a lot longer than that. After I finished school, and even in school, I was launching businesses. I launched a seasoning business. I launched a singlet business. I launched literally a social media app. I launched a Vietnamese roll cafe that failed. And if we constantly embrace what's known as the narrative fallacy, which is like simplifying people's stories, sure, I got rich quickly, but the vast majority of the stories and headlines that you see aren't just that. What actually happened in my situation is I stopped launching businesses. I took all of my money and I went and I worked for someone else. It was kind of my first proper job. I got rid of all of my ego and realized there was something that I was missing, some skill set that I needed to learn. And I went and I learned that skill set. And it was only until I spent a year doing that for someone else, learning on someone else's money, providing value for them, building a framework where I have the ability to explore and bounce ideas off people, was I actually able to level up to the point where I was ready to start a business. And this brings us to myth number 6, which is you should start an easy business first. Often you'll hear people that have never started a business just say, just start an easy business. It's gonna be the quickest way for you to learn. This is false. When I look at my rate of learning over the businesses that failed, where I would start the business, launch the website, launch the ads, and then fail. And that would be over a 6-month cadence, versus the learning that I learned from going from 0 to $100 million, and the amount of experience and exposure that I had to positive feedback loops. It's just incomparable. And one of the quickest ways to get a failed business is to copy what everyone else is doing through an easy business. Think cafes, clothing businesses. These are so accessible because everyone eats, everyone wears clothes. So therefore people assume, hey, I'm going to start this easy business with no barriers to entry. Suddenly what happens then is it's a race to the bottom in your pricing, because you are selling the exact same thing as everybody else. Therefore you don't have any margin to actually advertise the product, and therefore you have no way to explore with that margin in failed ventures or successfully creating Facebook ads. All of this kind of stuff. We want to create a differentiated product. And typically to do that, we don't want to start something that's easy. It's far better in business to find positive feedback loops, which we can repeat, rather than negative feedback loops, which we know that we need to avoid. A lot of people will say that, hey, failure is part of the process, and I'm one of them. But failure is definitely not better than success in learning. Let's illustrate this with a practical example. Let's say you want to get into dropshipping. It's a very easy business to get into. And typically one of the main practices that people use with this is they will find a competing dropshipping store that they know that they're selling very well and copy the product exactly. They'll copy not only the product, but the exact same market that they're selling in, the exact same marketing positioning, and they will just be lazy and launch that. Now, you don't want to start the easy path. You want to change the positioning. If your competitor's selling like knee braces and they're selling them for marathon runners, go to these suppliers that are selling them. Reach out and just say, hey, what's something that you could do very cheaply to customize this product so it's better for older people? Suddenly you've created a new marketing positioning. You've created a differentiated product, and you're far more likely to get successful on Facebook. This is the thing. People will just grab that one product and test it. That's the easy path. But you might not get any results there, but you're far more likely to get results by putting the work in and making it harder from the initial launch point. And this brings me to myth number 7, which money buys you happiness. I'm constantly asked, does money make you happy? When I look at when I was most happy, it's when the money was not part of the equation. It was simply the pursuit and the progress. It wasn't the outcome that I was chasing. It was the actual pursuit of chasing it. It was the small minor goals that I was hitting through that time. And I think that now, even when I'm most unhappy, I'm focusing on the money itself. There's a famous study done by Davie, I think it was in like 1971, where they got 2 sets of participants to do a puzzle. Initially, they both loved doing the puzzle, and then they were offered a financial reward for one of the groups. That group then far less enjoyed making the puzzle and didn't want to do further experimentation with it. Whereas the people that were just doing it for the creativity enjoyed it far more. So if you're currently in the process of becoming rich, you're watching this video and you're chasing it and you're like, I need this car, I need this watch to be happy. Chances are you'll look back and you'll realize quarter way through the process where you're doing things with cool people and you're getting some level of result and just really enjoying the process, you had the opportunity at that point to be the happiest that you'll ever be through your life. The extra money isn't going to take you further. So be very, very careful and think about that inflection point. If you like this video, go check out my video on all of my income streams and how I make over $100 million a year. Thanks.